Campbell to an extension through the 2021 season once the deal is official. He had 31.5 sacks in 48 games, made the Pro Bowl 3 times in 3 seasons with the Jaguars. So as we bring Dan Orlovsky back into the conversation, and Dan Graziano will rejoin us shortly, if you look at the way the Ravens are beefing up and you look at Patrick Mahomes in the division, I know that you were thinking a lot of this should be a signal to Tom Brady. What is that signal?
Get out of the AFC, Greeny. Do everything you can to find a team in the NFC, because this is all about him getting back to the Super Bowl and trying to win that Super Bowl. And the route is going to be easier in the NFC than it is the AFC. The Chiefs are going to be locked and loaded. We know that. Houston's going to be better. And now Baltimore, which was probably one of the 2 or 3 best teams already, has added Calais Campbell to their team. If Tom Brady's looking at the easiest route or the most opportune route to get back to the Super Bowl, it's not in the AFC. He's got to find an NFC team.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we'll get Graziano on this very soon, too. But it feels like the Ravens are playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Dan, what's your reaction to that?
Similar reaction to what you just said,
well,
Laura. I mean, like, this is crazy that they're able to get a player like this for a 5th-round pick that they got for a backup kicker. It says a lot about where Jacksonville is right now. They have to sell off pieces. This is a defense that just a couple of years ago was in the AFC Championship game, was thought of as an up-and-coming team, and it looks like they're taking it apart piece by piece, which is unfortunate for them, but their loss is Baltimore's gain. Baltimore, of course, coming off that monster 14-2 season, thinking about being a Super Bowl contender this year. Calais Campbell at 33, he gets 1 year added to the contract as a condition of this trade, and he'll be an anchor for their defense no matter what happens with Matt Judon, the franchise player that they tagged last week. If they end up having to trade him, Campbell becomes somebody who can augment the pass rush in his absence.
All right, so Dan Graziano is with us as well. Dan Orlovsky, I'll come back to you. If indeed you're saying get to the NFC, give me a team in the NFC that makes sense to you. If you're Brady, where are you looking to go right now?
Yeah, the team at the top of that list, Greeny. If you look at the Buccaneers, and everyone's going to go, well, Brady doesn't schematically fit Bruce Arians' offense. I think Bruce Arians is a good enough coach to understand this is what Tom Brady can do really well still and adjust his offense. And then you've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. And everyone needs to look at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense a little bit differently. The last 6 weeks of the season last year, they were the best defense when it comes to defensive efficiency. They were the best defense in the NFL. So you're looking at a team that's got some good pieces. They've got a ton of cap space to spend. We'll see what happens with Shaq Barrett. My guess is they tag him. But they've got a ton of cap space. And again, he doesn't have to go through the AFC, and that's such a big deal. There's a lot of intriguing things for Tampa Bay.
All right, let's get to another important piece of everything going on right now. With a new CBA in place, the Cowboys now have a decision to make regarding who to franchise tag. 2 of the biggest questions are, will Dallas use the tag on quarterback Dak Prescott, and what will become of Amari Cooper? Dan Graziano, what's the latest there with both of these guys and how the Cowboys may handle this in the next few hours and then during this week?
Well, they're still talking with both players, trying to get them both signed. In the Cowboys' ideal world, they would have both of these guys signed to long-term contracts by noon today, and there wouldn't be any issue. But the most likely scenario is that they will have to use the franchise tag on one or the other of them. It would be Dak Prescott if they don't have that deal done in time. So I think what they're trying to do is get Amari Cooper wrapped up before he has a chance to talk with other teams, which again would be noon Eastern time today. And if they do that and they franchise Dak Prescott, continue to talk to him about a long-term deal, they would have until July 15th to work that out. But again, Dallas' intention to sign both players. They've been in active conversations with the agents for both players since Indianapolis, since the Combine, and their hope and expectation is that at some point they will have them both under contract.
Again, I think it is important to make sure everyone understands, however, that they can only use one tag. So if, for the sake of discussion, they tag Dak Prescott today, Amari Cooper does become a free agent and can start talking to other teams. And while it may be his intention to go back, you never know. Someone throws a bunch of money at him, and it might be the end of his time in Dallas. So, Dan, let's go back to something we've been, Dan Orlovsky, let's go back to something we've been talking about here. It feels like forever. I mean, the time is now on this Dak Prescott thing. If he gets franchise tagged, would you advise him to sign it?
Oh, absolutely not. Dak should not sign that franchise tag. But there is a massive asterisk out there right now, Greeny, and you just brought it up. Because if Amari Cooper goes to sign to a different team, Amari Cooper's the guy that got Dak's career back on track. Middle of the 2018 season, a lot of us were asking what's wrong with Dak Prescott. They bring Amari Cooper in. They've really been the best duo in football since that addition. He revitalized Dak's career. And so now if you're Dak Prescott, and let's say now that free agency is going to happen and Amari can talk to other teams, let's say a team throws a ton of money at him. Let's say the Buffalo Bills or the Washington Redskins or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers throw a ton of money at Amari Cooper and he leaves. If you're Dak Prescott, now you're left and going, uh-oh, who do I have to work with? And you might be more apt to sign that franchise tag because you know if I have to play this season without a number one receiver, because there's not a ton on the market, without a number one receiver, I might not perform the way I thought I was going to with Amari Cooper. And that might throw everything kind of for a loop here because if Amari's not there, he's a different player. So it's a very interesting thing. Right now, I would tell him do not sign that tag.
All right, Dan, stay with us. I also want to mention very quickly that in just the last few moments, Adam Schefter has tweeted both that the Buccaneers have placed the franchise tag on Shaq Barrett and that the Chiefs have placed the franchise tag on defensive tackle Chris Jones, who is one of the most important players on their team. Neither of those comes as a big surprise, but it is significant. Meanwhile, NFL players voted to approve the new collective bargaining agreement, ratifying the new CBA by a margin of just 60 votes over the weekend. Keep in mind that while 2,500 players were eligible to vote, about 80% of them did. Owners will now have the option to expand the regular season to 17 games should they choose to, as early as the 2021 season, so not this one coming up, and then as late as 2023. The expectation being that owners will indeed expand the season. We'll see. Playoff expansion begins in 2020, this coming year. So the top seed in each conference will get the first round bye. The second seed will now be playing a wild card game. There'll only be one bye in either conference. Those are just some of the significant changes that will come with this new CBA, and not everyone was excited about it. Again, it passed by a very slim margin. Odell Beckham Jr., meanwhile, seems upset that players didn't vote. He tweeted 500 plus voices, 500 plus opinions. Hella disappointing. Couldn't even vote on your own future. Can't even comprehend it. So a lot to get into here, and we are delighted to have Sam Acho with us. He is a member of the NFLPA's executive committee. He's the brother of our teammate here, Emmanuel Acho. And Sam, as we just mentioned, this deal passed by the most narrow of margins. What does that tell you?
Yeah, it tells me that it was close. It tells me that there are a few things that could have changed that could have really swung this vote. About 1,000 people voted yes, which means they like the deal. They like the increase in minimums. They like the increase in benefits. But also almost 1,000 people voted no. And that tells me that we were ready for a strike.
So, and we will again talk to D. Smith a little bit later in this hour. We are in unprecedented times here, obviously, with what's going on across the country with the coronavirus and the expected economic impact of that. How do you think that factored into players voting?
I think it did. There's actually a point where we talked about actually allowing players to change their votes. Obviously, you look at all the information that's coming out with the coronavirus and every major sports league shutting down or suspending their league and even schools slowing down. So a lot of us said, would that affect our vote? But as a union, we decided to not allow people to change their votes, to keep the integrity of the voting process the same.
Can you expand on that thought? Because I do think in such vastly different circumstances, it made some sense to some people to allow players to change the vote. Take me a little further into that decision.
Yeah, definitely. Well, while we were actually at rep meetings, which was about a week and a half ago, before the coronavirus started really spreading the way we know it, there was talk about allowing guys to change their votes based off of new information in the CBA that players didn't necessarily know about. About a week and a half ago, we had a vote. We voted, every single rep voted to see if you wanted to allow the players to change their votes or not. That vote did not pass. And so fast forward about 2-3 days ago, a couple of days before the final decisions could be made, we had another call saying, do we want to allow people based on new information to change their votes? And the consensus was, once again, if we didn't allow them to change their votes 4 or 5 days ago, let's not allow them to change their votes now.
Fair enough. All right, Sam, and then there's a lot of people who are wondering whether it is the right thing to do optically and or otherwise for the league year to be progressing as it is right now. And it is our understanding it was the NFL Players Association that told the NFL that they believe this is the right time, that to move forward, the delay was not the wise choice here. What is your perspective on the idea that in 3.5 hours, the period to begin conversations with agents, et cetera, will begin, and the new league year and the signing of free agents will start in just 48 hours?
Yeah, I think that's the wrong decision. I believe that the league year should be suspended or delayed, just like every other major sports league. I look at the travel that players will have to take. You have to get on a plane to go visit a team, to go do a physical. Maybe you sign, maybe you don't. Now you fly back. Now you go visit another team. If you look at even what the CDC is recommending as far as limiting travel, as far as social distancing, I don't think it's wise for the league year to start right now. I think that if you want to sign a player, if you're a GM or an owner, you've watched the film. You know what that player can do. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. There's no doubt in your mind. If you want to sign that player, you know what he can do. And so if I believe that if you are going to start the league year, I don't think that travel needs to be necessary right now.
Yeah, it may not be necessary. Just as a quick final thought here, you've been around an awful long time, because I don't know that travel is going to be a realistic option for the overwhelming majority of people involved in this. Can we just conduct all of this business, save for the physical, virtually, the way you and I are talking to each other right now?
Yeah, I believe so. We're in the 21st century. You can send things online. You can sign a document online. I believe it can be conducted virtually, and even moving forward to OTAs. OTAs for some teams start in 2 or 3 weeks. I think that date needs to be pushed back as well in order to allow our country to heal.
All right, that seems like an overwhelming likelihood at this point. Sam Acho, so well done. Thank you so much for your